Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, is being investigated for a failure to make a declaration of interest. This is obviously stemming from his appearance in the liaison committee a couple of weeks ago. Ava, could you bring us up to speed on what's happening there?
Yeah, so what happened was the Prime Minister wanted to create more childcare in the UK, and when he was in front of the liaison committee, he did not declare that his wife had shares in one of the companies that is now going to be integral to rolling out this program to the entirety of the company. And she's got a huge stake. It's a couple of million.
Yeah, they have this like bonus referral scheme where if basically if you receive childcare via one of these agency providers as opposed to sort of like a private childminder, the cash incentive, the cash bonus for the agencies is higher per child than what the individual receives. Mm-hmm. So they're saying, why is this point of difference? And I don't think you'd be remiss to suggest that that point of difference is the fact that the Prime Minister's wife stands to benefit financially from those childcare agencies doing better.
It's quite funny just being, it's what you mentioned earlier about Nicola Sturgeon and Peter Murrow. Like, how could he possibly know all the things that his wife has invested in? It's like, you should have some idea, shouldn't you, if you're the Prime Minister? Make sure there isn't a conflict of interest. Is that not something you should be quite hot on?
Yeah, for sure. But actually, I think the same argument goes the other way. It's like, she should just have a blind trust. You know, like him, all of his assets are in a blind trust. He doesn't know what it's invested in, so that he can never face the accusation of acting in a certain way to his financial benefit. Now, like I said earlier, if you're married, you are connected legally and financially to your spouse. I'm not suggesting that Rishi Sunak is the chattel of his wife, or vice versa, or anything like that. But if your significant other stands to benefit, and we're not talking like a couple of grand here, we are literally talking like millions and millions of pounds, and you haven't declared it. I think his answer was something like, it was one of those moments in that committee where you don't really know what they're getting at, but you just you get a feeling. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. When I think Catherine McKinnon was like, and is there anything you'd like to declare about that, Prime Minister? And he went, well, no, everything is declared in the right and proper way. And there was a cut to her, and she was sort of doing like a sassily raised eyebrow, shall we say? Really? And lo and behold, 2.5 weeks later, it comes out. She knew what she was getting at, right? She knew she was asking that question for a reason.
But then, can I pose another point of view? And I don't want you to think I'm like taking the side of the Prime Minister here, because
you
I'm
always
not.
do. So,
but
it's pathetic, you shill.
It's possible. So the shares that she has are like 2 million in the company. It's possible that it's such a nominal amount of money to them that they wouldn't actually bother lobbying to get her company involved on the books.
Real chump change.
He probably could have broken character and been like, listen, the million or $250,000 that she stands to benefit, it's not even going to pay to heat the pool. Like, I really...
We were upgrading the entire electricity grid in Yorkshire, my swimming pool. Do you think that's fucking pocket change, bitch?
Yeah, it's his Boris Johnson chicken feed moment, isn't it? Oh, actually, everyone was calling him continuity Boris Johnson, weren't they? Because he failed to declare something. But then I do think that Boris Johnson had a different way of doing things than Rishi. Like, I think that he actually did willfully mislead Parliament, and I think he did it because he was in the pursuit of power and to be in control. I think Rishi just takes us all for fools. I think he's like one of those very wealthy people who looks at the rest of us as plebs and goes like, look, I'm not going to explain this to the working classes because they're never going to understand what investments are, all right? And they're not going to understand that this tiny little portion does not affect us.
Because they're so bad at maths.
Yes.
Segue. Yes. Yes, Head Campbell.
I'm going to fix it.
So hot.
Yeah, you will know. You will know about my dividends.
I'll be too late because you'll have to be 18 in about 15 years.
Did you notice that they're not going to put on that curriculum? He never said that he would put stats on there.
Is it just arithmetic?
Yeah, he wants to do arithmetic for like foundation. So the tradies will never know about it. We can't have them knowing about the stocks.
So what is up with this maths bullshit? What's going on with that? I mean, because it feels to me like the school is on fire, right? The school is literally on fucking fire, and then Rishi Sunak is sat there in the assembly hall, like doing his times table, being like 1 times 2 is, and everyone's like, Rishi, hello, Mr. Sunak, Mr. Sunak, the school's on fucking fire. Can you try and fix that? I'm less worried about my mental arithmetic. I don't know. It feels like such a like red herring. Maybe it's like personal legacy. It kind of falls into like Theresa May and like her end modern slavery thing, whilst also like operating one of the most like vile and disgusting the hostile environment policy, like, which is her brainchild, but she's like, yeah, we really cracked down on modern slavery. It's like these prime ministers get like a pet thing, and so it's that they can point back to it and be like, yeah, well, I did make everyone study fucking arithmetic until I was 18, so, you know, sorry.
But that's not... I think that'd be a good thing if everyone... Like, I think the point about people, it being socially acceptable to be bad at maths, or like, people struggle with maths, and maths is a daunting thing. I think people, as particularly at school level, get really in their head about maths, and maybe just the teaching isn't good enough. And so if everyone was confident in their numerical ability, I think that's a social good.
You can get more tax.
Get more tax, because they'd finally be getting all the numbers right.
Can I be really boring as well and go back to the trade union movement in the early 20th century? And this was a massive push that was innately socialist. So there was a workers' movement, workers' education movement, which sought to get further education for people. And I actually think this falls under it. And the principle of that was working class people don't have time to go to school, and they're not as intelligent as their aristocratic peers, because they don't have access to the same education. So you could look at it from the point of view like, well, why can't a 17-year-old who has grown up in, like, you know, a state school, why can't he have access to the same maths ability as someone who's gone to Eton? So from that perspective, I'm like, yes, I like it. Let's get on board with it. But the criticism of us not having enough maths teachers and us not having the funding to train any new maths teachers is completely fair. You're right to say the school's on fire and Rishi's just talking about planting sunflowers out the front. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
I think the thing with this as well is, if it was a more complete, like, we want universal education to 18, and I guess you kind of make the argument that we sort of do have that now with, you can stay in school, you can go and do an apprenticeship, you know, you do BTECs or whatever, and you're still in education. But that's not what he's saying here. He's saying maths is, like, he's singling out maths as part of that picture and being like, everyone has to do maths all the way through. It's not like elective, you know, you don't get, it's not that you can choose to do drama, English lit and biology.
But I would argue that it's not elective, even if it is an elective choice that was available. So say you made maths available for the entire country, right? There are still going to be large swathes of the population who can't afford to take on a fancy Mickey Mouse A-level degree. They go into trade and they go into BTECs because they need to get out of school and start earning money. If we had a scheme like the EMA scheme, which we used to have, which would pay up to £30 a week for sixth formers to go to school,
I used to get that.
Then we could talk about this again. I just think that while we're still in a position where 17-year-olds are having to take part-time jobs to earn their way to going to sixth form, there's no point in talking about what options we should have available at schools, because they can't get there in the first place. And I also resent, while I'm on this, I also really don't like how, so Gillian Keegan was on the broadcast round yesterday morning, she's the education secretary, and she was saying, well, we'd also offer foundation maths levels for people who are doing apprenticeships. Now, I hate this Tory encouragement of pushing people into apprenticeship schemes, because I don't like this idea that if you are from a less well-off background, it's better for you to just get yourself straight into a trade and you shouldn't go to university because it's not financially viable. Like, no, we're going back into a two-tier system where if you come from a poor family, you have to go into trade working. And if you come from a wealthier family, you can enjoy the arts and go and discover yourself at university. Anyway, someone else can talk now.
I think there's a bit of a contradiction there, to be honest with you, mate, because, you know, if you're talking, like, on the one hand, you're saying that you don't, that sort of vocational apprenticeship side of things is misplaced, and that also, you know, it's better for people to go and forced to study these subjects. But, like, if you suck at maths and you have to do it until you're 18, and that is your only option, I don't think it's to your benefit to be made to go and do that. I think you should have the option to be able to go and get vocational training, to take on an apprenticeship, or, you know, whatever it might be. I'm not sure. How do the two sit together?
Well, I'd like the idea that it would be compulsory to do one of the three core subjects. So I like the idea that you have to pick either continuing with maths or continuing with English or a science. Yep. You have to do that. And it can be at a tiered level that is suited to you. But there are so many people who are really well-read or really good at English and didn't get to study it at university or in further education because it is seen as a subject that doesn't get you into a well-paid job. Why should you not have access to great literature just because you can't afford to study it?
I also think the way that he spoke about this, this isn't a direct quote, but the words were very similar to this, where he basically said, adults should be embarrassed if they can't do basic maths. That's like the verbatim quote from that speech. And I don't know. I think that's like an incredibly, we know his background, right? Investment fund, working in the city, and it's like, if you can't do basic maths, and I think it's just such like an entitled thing to say that, because some people really can't. Like, it's not because for a lack of trying. It's like they just can't make head nor tail of maths for various reasons. They might have different learning challenges, whatever it is. But to say like, no, you should be embarrassed if you can't do maths. That's not the same as saying we want everyone to have the same level of education. That's like making a judgment about people, particularly if it's a result of them having learning difficulties. If I don't know,
that's Eton sniping.
Yeah.
Did you guys like maths at school?
No.
Ava?
No, look, I don't want to answer this question because
Why?
it might call into question the rest of what I've said.
Why?
Yeah, no, I like maths a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I like maths as well.
Yeah.
I think.
But
I was just interested.
What I'm saying is, I don't necessarily think you should just take maths forward. I just think that compulsory education would be a great way for the entire country to move forward, no matter what subject that is.
Free at the point of use.
Yeah, maybe we should also talk about the fact that this was trialled in 2022. There are 17 institutions that actually did trial it. OCR, the examining body, they actually have been trialling it, and then they looked at the end of it and they went, this doesn't work at all.
Well, let's roll it out across the country then.
They've got another U.
Thanks very much for watching that video all the way to the end. And if you liked it, I've got some better news for you. Politics Joe is in the process of launching a podcast. Live in a couple of weeks' time. It's called The Pubcast. Link below, probably somewhere in the comments or the description, something like that. Check it out. Subscribe so you get ready for our first episode. It's coming soon. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or any of those other slightly weirder platforms. See you soon.